Good morning.
Hi, it's Jen. How are you?
I'm Jen. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. So I was supposed to be hiking today, and the cold rain that we're having put that under wraps. So I figured I would just hop in real quick and make sure everything was off and running.
Oh, thank you.
No, you're welcome. Thank you guys for doing this. And I see looks like Andrew's got some audio here.
Good morning, ladies.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm living the dream.
It's always the case. I just want to thank you guys once again for doing this. This is so appreciated.
Yeah, no problem. Are you able to hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Good.
All right. So do you, Andrew, I know you said you're familiar with the WebEx format, so you know how to share files or whatever you want to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
I use WebEx about 5 hours a day.
Oh, you are rock solid. Okay. Do you need me for anything, or shall I hop out and leave you to do your thing?
I think I'm good, unless I get an abundance of questions all at once, but I'll handle it fine. I'll be right.
Okay. All right. And Kelly, you're good?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, awesome. So this should be set to record already. And Andrew, I'm sure you know how to do that if it doesn't start recording.
Yeah, bottom left is recording.
Okay, perfect. I'll pull down the recording later on today. I'll get that out to the faculty and to advising, and we'll just take it from there.
It'll be an exciting video if you got nothing going on tonight.
You know, maybe during commercials on the Patriots game, I may watch.
It was pretty exciting, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. No, I will learn something for sure. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, don't put that much pressure on me.
Oh, my gosh. All right. Now all we need is students, and we're good to go.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah.
All right, you guys.
All right, take care.
Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
Andrew, do you normally do a video, like so that the students can see you? Or do you just do audio?
Most of today is going to be desktop, so I wouldn't necessarily do video. I can and I do, but
yeah. Okay,
it's on a Saturday, so I am unshaven and in a t-shirt.
No, that is fine. No, that's fine. Yeah, I had to get up and shower early. I was like, okay, I have to make sure in case we do video. Sometimes they do. I've seen some of them where they do video so that the students feel like they're talking to an instructor. They can see the face. But I don't know if it's that much of a difference.
It's a little bit better. I can do that.
No, I wouldn't worry about it for today. No,
okay.
No, I wouldn't worry about it at all. I was team leading another course, and they always wanted us to have our video on, so it would be like face-to-face, which I think is a good idea, but it's, like you said, it's a Saturday morning, so that's a little bit more of a challenge. You know what I just realized? I logged in as Sherry's, her ID and everything, so I am the host. So, excuse me, I think I need to somehow transfer that to you, which I think if I just click on this ball that's next to my name, I'm going to move it down to yours. Do you want to change? Yes. Okay, so now you are the presenter. It says it's passing privileges. So I think that allows you to share the screen and everything, sort of.
Yes, ma'am. That's all I need. I'm good.
Yeah. I know. I wasn't quite sure how if we both logged. I think it's like the first person that logs in gets the host.
I think you probably logged into her information.
Yeah.
And she was listed as the host. So.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. But now you definitely have presenter rights. Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, that sounds good.
Yep.
Oops.
So you can go back to your normal Saturday agenda if you'd like. I appreciate
Okay.
taking
All
a
right.
minute to make sure I got logged in all right.
Okay, that's fine. And if you you have my number, like if something happens and you do you want me to leave it on in the background? Like I'll go do my thing, but I'll leave it on. And if for some reason if you had an issue or something, I have had one time where an instructor lost their internet. So hopefully that wouldn't happen. But if it does, if you wanted to text me on that number, I can just leave the meeting going and then I could jump in so that if students came into it. I don't know if you ever have an issue with your internet though.
No, but what is your number?
Yeah, it's 207-752-1581, and I can get calls or text. So I'll keep my phone, and then for some reason, if I heard from you, I'll just leave the meeting running in the background so I could jump right back in.
Okay.
All right. And again, it sounds like you're very seasoned at it, so I don't think you're going to need any help. So.
Oh yeah.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
I'll just mute mine, and I'll just be in the background doing my thing.
All right.
All right. Good luck.
Yeah. Hi, Shannon.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well. Do you have a particular milestone that you're working on that I can help you out with?
No, not specifically. I'm teaching one of the courses.
Oh, I thought I recognized your name.
Yeah, I was having some problems downloading the software, so instead of I just came in as a guest. I figured it'd be easier that way.
Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah.
Then obviously you don't need any milestone help. Hi, Kelly. Thank you for joining us. Do you have a particular milestone to look at today? Oh, I might have been a little early. Hello, Kelly. Kelly, I see you as speaking, but I'm having trouble hearing anything there.
Actually, I'm not speaking.
There we go. Sorry. Do you have a particular milestone you want to look at this morning?
Actually, no, I'm just more listening in to see if there's anything that might help me. I mean, thus far I've had no issues with any of the milestones.
Okay.
But it's more, I always listen in to whenever there's a webinar because I might pick up a little tidbit that will help me with the final milestone.
Absolutely. So my intent was to, depending upon what to go based on what the audience was looking for. So as a few of your peers join, I'll certainly go through whatever milestone they want in that order, and then feel free to take anything away from that you'd like. Otherwise, if you've got anything that you've got concerns on or any sections that maybe not a milestone it is by itself, but maybe just one section that you have questions on, I can certainly direct directly to that. But there's not I don't have any sort of formal order because it's all based on what you and your peers are looking for, how I can best assist you. If I don't get for feedback, I think what I'll do is just go through the milestones in order, describing what should be in each section and providing a template. I'll wait for a little bit before I shift gears to that point to see if there's anyone that has a particular milestone that they would prefer to start with.
Well, for me, I'd prefer the final milestone since that's the one that's due. And obviously, we should have already done the others and have submitted them. And if there were issues, I would hope that the students would have reached out to their professor to get help as in finding out why they didn't receive the grade that they thought they should.
Well, so, yeah, that can ideally that's the case, but I think there are some people I think there are people that haven't got to that point. But if you'd like, I'm happy to go over the final. That's not a problem at all. Have you looked ahead much at the final?
I have.
Okay.
I've looked at it. In fact, I've started working on it, and actually I would need to pull up to see if there are any questions that I might have. I mean, like I said, thus far, I've had no questions or issues with doing any of the milestones.
Sure. Why don't we, Kathy's on the line with us here. Kathy, did you have a particular milestone that you want to look at with me today? I don't know if she's got audio going. It doesn't look like she does. Feel free to just use the chat window. We're getting a few more people here. I think then I'm just going to go ahead and go chronologically because we've got a few people here that don't look like they're set up for audio, so they should be able to hear me, but maybe not necessarily interact. So we're going to go through the 3 milestones in order, and then certainly the last one. That's not a problem. It'll take me a couple seconds to find my template for it, but I can go through that. And then while I'm going through that, these templates should have been posted by your professors in your either in the announcement or via email. You should have got a copy of these templates. So while I'm going through these templates, if you don't have them, just let me know and give me your email address in the chat window, and I'll flip them over to you quick so that you can make all the updates and everything while we go. So with that, I'm going to just flip over to get started on the first milestone, and I'll go through it. And anyone with questions, jump in right away, and I'll address the questions as we go. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep kind of on rambling. But this is your time, so if you got questions at all, please jump in. Again, this is the first milestone, so presumably it's done, but if you want to make some updates, this advice might be able to help you. Otherwise, you can just hang back and wait till we get to the one that you are concerned with. And because I'm sharing monitor, I'm not going to see a lot of chat things, so you'll want to jump in with audio if you have an issue. Milestone 1, this is the template that I've been providing for my students. They seem to like it, and they score drastically higher when you use the template. And by the template, I mean the structure, leaving this information in here. I find it very valuable to leave the questions within the paper as opposed to writing it as a narrative. When you leave the questions in the paper, it gives you a checkpoint, if you will, to look up and see, okay, did I answer each component of the question? So to perform best on the milestones, I strongly encourage students to leave the question in. Also, it helps to break your thought, because keep in mind that while these questions are related in context, the questions you can answer, they are designed to be answered individually. So you don't necessarily one long paper, you want the individual sections. So in this first section, all of these papers, you don't necessarily have to, because it's not graded in that it's not a component on the rubric, if you will. But in most cases, a couple of sentences to start things off helps. We'll go into the first question of the milestones: generating value. How does the company in the case study use operation management functions to provide value? So with all of these, they can usually be answered in about 4 to 7 sentences. The first section, this first question, is all about what OM does to make value for Nissan. And a lot of students right away jump to this idea of the natural disaster. While that is a component of the case study, we're really looking at Nissan as a whole. We're not really necessarily looking at how they respond to this disaster. So I find a lot of people get off track there, and they start talking a ton about the disaster. That's not really the focus here. The focus is, what does Nissan do to provide value from a production standpoint? So here you're the main value that they provide, is the tangible good, it's the car. Nissan provides value for their customers by producing an automobile. The operation function of that is to help make sure that automobile is produced as efficiently as possible. And what are some examples of what they do to make that as efficient as possible? Well, they're doing things like having a limited SKU so that they can have efficient production lines where they don't have to account for as much variability. They're doing things like having decentralized supply chain management, so your local manufacturers can have less time on speed to market and make their adjustments faster. They're doing things like having a very diverse board of directors that are able to represent the company globally. Sometimes you get a global company that's kind of headquartered in one area and your board of directors is all centralized there, and it can cause some issues for understanding your other customers. So Nissan does those types of things from an operations standpoint to provide value for their customers. The next question, I think they blend a little bit too much because those same operational functions that they do are things that provide them a competitive advantage. So when you're talking about some of those things that Nissan does well, obviously if you're doing things better than your competition, that's what gives you an advantage. So a lot of the same content in the fact that you're talking about what Nissan does well can also be applicable in the second question. One of the keys, though, is to be clear and blunt in that this creates a competitive advantage. As an example, Nissan uses a reduced SKU line so that they can have an efficient production plant. They are able to produce vehicles more efficiently because of this. This provides a competitive advantage for them. I know it seems kind of overly structured, but bluntly calling out your competitive advantages are going to help you on the paper because your professor is going to be able to mentally note, oh, that's one advantage, oh, that's another advantage. So those types of things that they do well, call out bluntly. And once you have 2, 3, 4 of them, you're going to have enough content for your points. Usually 4 to 7 is going to get you there, 4 to 7 sentences. So what does Nissan do to make themselves more productive? The diverse leadership, decentralized supply chain management, reduced SKU. Those are all good examples of things that they do better than their competition. The next question, comparing and contrasting service and manufacturing. The first thing I want to touch on is just what the blunt difference is, because there's a couple of key things you want to call out, and it'll help phrase the rest of the application for Nissan. So I usually tell students to first describe the difference between them, and that's looking at some of the key differences. So service is intangible. Production manufacturing is tangible. Service is very, very difficult to measure and subjective. Manufacturing is objective and easy to measure. Service is difficult to repeat. Manufacturing is easy to repeat. That's not necessarily everything that's needed for the question, but that's the differentiation that you should be thinking about for those two different areas of operations management. Because operations management isn't just building the car, it's the purchase experience. So some of those service components, while in auto manufacturing, are drastically reduced compared to like a dentist, if you will. That's still a function of operations management. So a couple sentences on what the differences are, like I listed out, and then to apply it to Nissan. Nissan's production operation, you know, the manufacturing, if you will, the tangible good they provide is the vehicle. That's I know it sounds elementary, but that's bluntly what you should call out. The manufacturing side of it makes that vehicle. The service side of it handles the purchase experience. One place students get off course a little bit here is the service. When we're talking about service, a lot of times they're giving me examples that are internal to Nissan. And service as a operations standpoint is your contact with the customer. So for Nissan, their service is stuff like the buying experience, auto service on their vehicle, you know, maintenance sort of stuff. And it would be financing, if Nissan does their own financing for vehicles. Those types of things would all be kind of considered the service arm of operations management for Nissan. If they have a customer call center, if you call for warranty questions, warranty work would be another service function. Those are all parts of the service component. So just keep in mind, it's not service internal to Nissan's operations. It's external. It's the customer facing. I'm going to check back in over to the chat window here just to make sure I don't have any sort of questions jumping out. If you do feel, yeah, Eric, you can get a copy of the template. Your professor should have provided it, but I'll be happy to switch it over. Give me 1 second. I'll do that real time because otherwise I'll forget. So I'm going to send that out, and I want anyone who would like the template to put their email address in the chat window and what template number you want. I'll just do it. I'll just send all of them.
Andrew?
Yeah.
This is Kathy. I just thought, you know what I'll do? Excuse me. While this is going on, I'll go check all of the classes, and if the templates haven't been posted, I'll put them in for you so you can tell people if they haven't seen them, they'll be there.
Yeah, okay.
Would that be easier? Or?
Yeah, that's fine. So the templates, okay. the templates then, thank you, Kelly. The templates for all of these will be showing in your Blackboard shell in the very near future, if not already.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So go ahead and check your Blackboard shell for the template if you don't have it available. And then you can go ahead and, I want real-time work so that when you're done, if you're sitting on this call and you're behind and you make some notes and you put in the effort, by the time we hang up this call, you're going to have your papers like halfway done. If you're making these notes as we go. So if you don't have the templates handy and this is something that you're working on, go to your shell, get those templates out, and we'll just add to it as you can literally take all these notes as you go, and then when we disconnect, all you got to do is kind of formalize it into a better thought, a better narrative, as opposed to just notes. So we're going to real time get a lot of the content that you need. All right, I'm going to keep going through here. Now we're looking at PERT and CPM. So the main difference on PERT versus CPM is whether the actions are structured well or not, whether you're estimating or not. PERT is going to do a 3-point estimate, so your best case, most likely case, and pessimistic, or optimistic, most likely, and pessimistic case. So PERT works great for things that require estimation. So if you're Nissan, a research and development project could be PERT, or if you're looking at building a new manufacturing plant, that would be a good PERT example. For CPM, CPM is very good at structured activities, measuring the critical chain. So measuring performance in your assembly, you know what the steps are and you know the order they have to go. Obviously, you can't put a door to a car until the frame is there. So that sort of order and structure is part of CPM because you're focused on critical chain and it's structured wherein you know how long each time activity takes. So for a good project for CPM would be measuring turnaround time for production or predicting how long it will take if you make one alteration. So maybe you build something different and you rearrange the order. That sort of production-based issue is going to be better for CPM. Couple sentences on what CPM is versus PERT, and then those examples, you're good to go for that section. The steps for developing a forecast system. These steps come right out of your text. There's it's 7 steps, and a lot of times people try to research forecast systems, just various internet research. You don't want to do that. There's steps that are listed right in the course text, and you want to use those steps. I find it really, really easy to list it out like it shows on this template. So step 1, to make sure you're on the same page, if I remember right, step 1 is the subject. You know, what is it? What are you forecasting? So during this step, Nissan would determine what they're forecasting. Here you want a specific example, but make it really easy on yourself. So Nissan would choose to forecast sales for a Maxima, Nissan Maxima. You know, that's how simple and specific you'd want. So the next part is the time, right? How long the forecast should be. And for auto manufacturing, I presume you're usually going to look at model year. So next year's model, and then the next step, and so on. And if you just go through like that, and at the end have a short description, this is how forecasting works, blah, 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 couple sentences, that's going to get you all the points that you need. So a sentence or two telling what a forecast system is and going through the steps in that chronological order providing a very simplistic example is the easiest way to get your points here. Supply chain risk comes right from your text. A lot of people want to default to a Google search, and I strongly encourage you to utilize your text. I'm going to pause on that for 1 second, because big picture, these assignments are written with the text in mind. So they go hand in hand together, and I've seen a lot of people struggle with some good content that doesn't really fit what we're looking for. So when you're defaulting to try to figure out what's the best resource for this question, you're going to want to look for your text first. It's going to be much better than the information that you're going to find just by Google searching, because that's not going to be, the output of that isn't necessarily what you're looking for. While the content might have some validity, it's not the focus. So within your text, there's a page that has a list in it of supply chain risk and what the mitigation strategy is. And if you put in a short couple sentences before that, you can literally copy that chart in and change it to the mitigation strategy and note how Nissan would approach the mitigation there. So your mitigation strategy is going to be already listed in the course, in that text, and then all you have to do is change to put Nissan would, essentially, and make sure it makes sense. Obviously, you wouldn't want to put something that doesn't make sense, but that supply chain risk chart, if you will, is pretty comprehensive. That's milestone 1. The description there, if you follow that description, took some notes, the actions there, I'm relatively confident you'll do extremely well. I've talked to your professors, the other professors, and told them the structure that I go through, and if you have a bunch of stuff that I told you to put and you don't do well, your professor is going to talk to me. So I've already laid that out there, but I'm relatively confident. I've been teaching this class for a long time. I'm relatively confident that everyone's going to review things the same way I am. So I know most of your professors to some degree, and we've talked about it in advance. So before I move on, let's open that up then for milestone 1, and tell me what questions you have, whether it be in the text window or whether it be speak up. Any questions on milestone 1?
Very good.
For those questions where I said we should look at would it help for those questions where I said you should look at your text if I gave some page numbers? Does anyone have from milestone 1 specifically, does anyone have a specific, I'm sorry, I mentioned a bunch of page, use your text. Does anyone, if they're taking some notes for that milestone 1, need a page number? We've got someone typing there. Try to make sure that you're on mute if possible. Okay, We've got the text up. If anyone does want that example, I'll be happy to share one. Otherwise, I'll move on to milestone 2. Before I do that, does anyone have any other questions on milestone 1? I believe that Jennifer Varney, the assistant dean, is going to review it to make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And then as far as posting, I don't know if there's any posting. It might go onto our Blackboard pieces for people that weren't able to make the schedule. I don't think it'll be anything beyond that. So if you're worried about, it's not like a publicized sort of thing. It would just be to your peers.
A couple minutes to throw it in the next. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to move on to milestone 2 then, unless anyone else has got any questions. As far as where the, sorry, I didn't see that earlier, Kelly, where to look in Blackboard for the template. It should have been posted either as an announcement or in your course information component. Is there anyone that wasn't able to find it that wants it? It'd be really easy for me just to shoot it over via email. Is there anyone that needs a template that didn't have access to it? If you just provide me your email address in the chat window, I can flip it over to you really quickly. Again, I'm all about real time, because if you're struggling to get these milestones done, I want you to leave this WebEx with, you know, about halfway done, because you're going to take these notes real time as we go, disconnect the call when you're done, change your notes into a narrative, and you should be done in most cases. All right, Eric and Kelly, I'm happy to send those out. Oh, Eric said he found them. Kelly, I'm happy to send them out. Do you have a particular one, or are you looking for a couple of them? All of them, one of them, none of them? All of them? Yeah, be happy to. While I'm getting those ready to shoot out, is there, oh, somebody needs to mute. That's horrible. Oh, thank you. While I'm getting that ready to shoot out, is there anyone else that wants to have included on that email? Anyone else that wants to be included in that email, put your email address in there and I'll forward it along. All right, Kelly, you'll have those in just a couple seconds. And I'll go ahead and move on to milestone 2.
You okay?
Okay, milestone 2 I set up in a similar format for you're welcome. I set up in a similar format if you're looking to use the template. I think it makes it a lot easier, and that you don't have to, having the questions in there provides a great baseline for making sure you answered everything while you're typing it out. It gives a good gauge as to what you're looking for. I also include some guidance in the template itself, so it's not just the questions. So I strongly encourage it, but it's not a requirement. It's just something, there's a very strong correlation between those that use this information and a better grade. So I suggest it. All right, first question to look at for milestone 2 is theory of constraint. Is anyone else able to hear my audio? Can someone just verify that to see if it's a me issue? Okay, Kathy can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you, Andrew.
Okay, so for Zwina, I think that might be on your end. Do you have everything set up for audio, so you have either headphones or speakers, something of that nature?
Dan, why are you being a punk this morning? Do what you normally do. You want to come down with me?
I do ask if you're not asking a question, if you could put yourself on mute, that'd be great. I think that's Eric there in the background. Selena, are you able to hear yet? I hope you are. I got to move on though I think that we're all good on our end. So in the theories of constraint section, you're going to type out just a couple sentences to start off on what theories of constraint is. Page 306 is going to be your best source from our text. So a couple sentences here on what theories of constraint is. You know, it's just the idea that the weakest link of your chain, if you will, is the strongest you can be. Kind of a extrapolation of the idea that the herd is only as fast as its slowest member. That's the concept for theories of constraint. So every time you improve the weakest link, the slowest member, whatever the case may be, you improve it overall. So that's the general idea of theory of constraint. And we focus to improve your organization. Theory of constraint takes a focus at the weakest link, fixes it, and then what's the next weakest link? Your steps in it are listed on page 306. So after a brief introduction on what theory of constraint is, then you're going to do an example. Now this example, a lot of students get hung up on that they try to go too big picture. Theory of constraint is something that's applied on a micro level. So if you're thinking, we'll think of it for Nissan, and we're looking at assembly line, or we're looking at their supply chain, whatever the case may be, you don't want to just say the constraint is that they have a complex supply chain. You know, let's look at the theory of constraint looks at one small constraint. So the example I like is, let's say your incoming production, your incoming materials, your incoming supplies, if you will, you have a bottleneck where you receive your supplies. Maybe your loading dock isn't set up very well. That's a small constraint. It's not, you won't just say my supply chain is my constraint. That's too big picture for theory of constraint. So it could just be the constraint is we can't offload our supplies fast enough. So that's your step one, identify the constraint. Step two, develop a plan for overcoming the constraint. And your Nissan example would be redesign the layout for our loading dock. We're going to determine how to redesign it. And you go through those steps with that very simplistic example. And you don't have to necessarily say the solve or provide a design or anything like that. But you would be simplistic and just list out the steps on how Nissan would fix it. It's not terribly difficult. You're in text, refer to page 306. If you have a brief introduction to what theory of constraint is, and the big picture, again, the idea is that theory of constraint focuses on individual small issues to try to improve the overall, one at a time. So a brief introduction on what theory of constraint is, go through the steps with an example, so you're going to get all your points. Total quality management, here I get a lot of very, very vague answers where they'll say something like total quality management is ongoing focus on management. Well, sure, it is, but that doesn't really get to the heart of the matter. Otherwise, you would just say that for any operations management function. TQM is specific in some of the tools that it uses. Look at page 208, and within page 208, you have, you're going to, I think, let me flip to 208 quick. Give me a couple seconds, because I know, excuse me, you're going to have, sorry for the delay, I didn't think I was going to do that, but it makes sense for me to do that. So I'm going to switch to page 208. Is where it starts for TQM. But the most important part is going to be those 7, there we go, no, 212 is better. These 7 concepts for an effective TQM program, make sure to include this sentence, if you will, in your paper, because these are the key components on how your book breaks out TQM. So when you have your vague sentence to start, that's fine. Total quality management refers to an emphasis on this, that's fine. But make sure you include this for the specific, because those are the things that differentiate between TQM and other operations management functions. So then your applicability is going to be some of these tools or some of these steps. So when you move into your applicability component, if you wanted to say something like benchmarking, you could say Nissan would utilize the TQM tool of concept of benchmarking by comparing their operations to companies like Honda and Chevy. That's an example that's very simplistic that shows you understand what benchmarking is and that it is a concept of TQM. If you want to look at a tool as well, a couple examples, some of the tools of TQM are going to be stuff like your scatter plot. They're going to be stuff like your, here we go, here's tools, good tools that are applicable. Your cause and effect diagram. So a good example would be Nissan would use a cause and effect diagram to determine why they're having defects in production of their Altimas. Something of that nature. You only need enough on the example to show that you understand what the tool is and that you're including a tool that's valid for TQM practices. Okay, I'm going to move to the one that causes holistically the most problems with students. It's the biggest difficult component. But I don't think it's necessarily difficult because it's a tough concept to grasp. I think it's difficult because of the tool itself. So I'm going to talk about what the cause and effect diagram is. A cause and effect diagram is a brainstorming tool that allows you to trace a big picture problem down to some specific root causes. This question causes people a lot of problems in that they search the case study for what the problem is. And admittedly, the first time I taught this class, I spent about an hour poring over the case study trying to figure out what problem it was they wanted us to solve before I realized that it was fictitious. You make up your own problem. You're supposed to talk about some newly developed materials, so I kept looking for newly developed materials in the case study and couldn't find anything. So it's something very simple. Think of a problem that has to do with using materials. I like to use windshields as an example because it's very simplistic and it shows that we know what we're talking about. So the problem statement for an example that I like is Nissan's had trouble with their windshields in their Altimas. They're leaking. So when we're looking at something like that, I included an Excel template that makes it so you don't have to do any drawing. You don't have to, because I don't want this course isn't about artwork. This course is about understanding some operation management functions, fishbone diagram being one of them. So in the case for Windows not working right, the first thing you want to look at if you want to do the template is going to be a clear problem statement. Now, this is often a hang-up for students because a problem statement shouldn't involve any solutions, shouldn't involve any causes. So a lot of times when somebody looks at this window issue, the statement would be something like, the windows are leaking because sealant's bad and that causes problems for our customers. That's way too much, way too much. Your problem statement should be very concise. So for the example we're talking about, it would be something like, new windows leak. That's your whole problem. The problem is that my new windows leak. Everything beyond that is going to be considered stuff like solutions, and it's going to be considered root causes. So it's not new windows leak because, it's not new windows leak which causes, it's just new windows leak. That's the problem statement. So what causes, so your next step in a fishbone diagram are the causes. Now these causes can be changed, but they are great for our purposes. So these 6 that are listed here in this template, just leave them. You don't need to take it out because these are your categories that are very, very common in manufacturing. So I usually suggest leaving them. Now when you go to your specific causes, the specific causes that are listed in here don't necessarily relate. So you'll want to clear the causes. But they give you a good example of what sort of things you should be looking for. So those are good examples. But your specific causes here are actually going to be things, so for machine, you got to make sure to relate the specific cause to the issue and the category. So for machines, here it could be poor calibration. Meaning that your windows are being cut the wrong size or not set right. For people, it could be something like aren't trained. Ooh, sorry, I'm not typing all this morning. Aren't trained on new windows. Methods. Varying methods. So when you use this in real life, you're usually standing in a conference room and you're saying, with a whiteboard out in front of you, what are some potential causes under each of these categories? What could be causing the problem? And then you're trying to trace the problem to a root cause. And this is something that I do every once in a while with my projects that I lead. I'm a project manager for the most part, and this is something that I do regularly, and it works as a good brainstorming technique. Because then when you identify the root cause, and what it is, so it's when you identify your root cause, we'll say for this case, it's bad sealer. You know, under your materials, bad sealer, and we say that's our root cause for this problem. Let's pause on real world for a second and talk about administrative for your assignment. If you have 5, 6 potential root causes, that should be enough for our purposes. You don't need to try to fill out that whole thing. So when you're looking at all of these specific causes, get about 4 to 6 good ones that are good possibles and they align with the problem statement. That's all you need. If you had one under each, that'd be plenty. So then for our purposes on this paper, we're saying the root cause is bad sealant. So it's not necessarily the window, it's that they're not sealed well. So then you go back to for your discussion here, it's going to be something like Nissan's new windows aren't working well. Your introduction is going to be Nissan's new windows aren't working well. We did a cause and effect diagram to find out why they're leaking. Then you'll insert your cause and effect diagram here, and you can just do a snippet if you want. You can do an embedded Excel, so you just save it and it folds back in if you use the template. And then you're going to have a sentence or two that says what your outcome of the root cause analysis was. So you did your fishbone diagram, and then you're going to come back to this and say, we did our fishbone diagram and determined that it looks like a bad sealer is the problem. Another potential problem is this. And that's what you need for this section. That I know is one that gives people problems, so I'm going to pause and give a second here for anyone that has some questions on that. I know that's kind of a bigger section that people have had some problems with. So who's got some issues with the fishbone I can help them with?
It says, actually, it said 2-hour span.
What was that? I'm sorry?
No.
I'm sorry, I missed that question. Somebody had typed a question. What was that again? We as the OM manager decide what the root cause is? Yeah, that's the exercise. So you're finding the hypothetical root cause. So you draw out your fishbone and then you pick one and you say why you think it's the root cause. So in our examples, it would be based on this cause and effect diagram, we believe the root cause to be a poor sealant and we'll investigate to solve that root cause. Any other questions on this cause and effect diagram? Because, like I said, I know this can be a difficult one.
How can we get a template for the fishbone?
That is embedded within the document. So, do you have the template that I sent out, or do you want me to send that to you?
Could you please?
Yeah. Can you go ahead and type out in your chat window your email address, and I'll send all of them to you.
Yeah, because I had to. I'm on my laptop, but I couldn't have. I had problems with the audio, so I called in also.
Okay, if you want to, are you able to use the chat window and just type in your email address? I'll copy paste it over and have the template to you in a matter of seconds.
Yes, I can do that. I just can't. I couldn't hear anything, so I decided let me call in and still, you know, be able to see the chat.
Okay. You want to put your email address in there?
Sent it went to Andrew privately.
All right, that's been sent to you. You should have that in a matter of a couple seconds. You'll have the template.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay, thanks.
Now, within the template, this fishbone diagram, this Excel macro that I've got, is actually embedded. So you'd open the template, and right where it's at, all you have to do is double-click. And as long as you've got a moderately recent version of Excel, that should open right up for you. And then when you make the adjustments, you just save, and it closes back into the template, or you can take a snippet, whatever you want. But you can just leave it like this, and your professor will be able to open and grade accordingly.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Before I move on, any other questions on the fishbone diagram? Okay, now we're going to move on to the process time function map. This is one that sometimes trips people up as well. But if you use your course text, it shouldn't be too difficult because the course text has a great example for exactly what we want. And it's on page 280. And when I say a good example, I mean like almost to the point. Now, obviously, you don't want to just copy paste it, but you want to replicate it within Excel. It's the easiest way to do it. So page 280 of your text, and I'll actually go ahead and pull that up so I can show you what I'm talking about. Give me a couple seconds here. This is the process map that you're looking for. You do not have to have necessarily these symbols. If you think of this as Excel, just think of it as an Excel formula. I mean, it's a little Excel sheet. Just putting the information within the box from here is all you need. So take Excel, think of the steps here that are going to be involved in getting a vehicle from the customer back to the customer's order back to being built. So these steps for the most part work. And then your timeline, how long should it take? When you're building this out to make things easy for yourself, you're going to want to put in things like this where it says wait. That wait sort of thing makes it easy for you to call out a problem in the description. So I strongly encourage you to look at page 280 when you're doing your time function map, and then just build it out in Excel. And you can, like I said, just type in the cells what the action is. You don't necessarily have to try to make the fun diagram, if you will. Having the lines and just words in the Excel cell take care of that for you. So for our purposes on the question, it's saying we're going to use a time value map to figure out what's causing the production to be slow. So you would say an introduction sentence of something like, below is a time value map or a time function map for our new manufacturing process. We're trying to figure out how to improve speed. And then you have the time function map from page 280. Again, don't just copy paste it, but recreate something similar in Excel. And then after that, just like with the cause and effect diagram, you're going to have a few sentences on what you found because we're saying you found the solution. So if you build it like on 280, you're going to have some really easy call outs in that you built in some weight, if you will. So you will say, in reviewing the time function map, we find that there are areas where there is wait time. We can eliminate that by having production flow through or using just in time or whatever the case may be, just say we're going to eliminate that wait time. There's no reason to have it. And when you eliminate that wait time, of course, your function gets smaller, so you're faster. That is another section that causes some people issues, though. So does anyone have questions on that? I'll be happy to go through that further, but otherwise, I strongly encourage you to look at page 280. Okay, look at the last one for this milestone. This is a weighted average math problem, essentially. It's a story problem where you do some weighted average work. So you can either do it in Excel or just pen and paper, whatever the case may be, but you're taking the weight of the factor times how the factor scored for the city to get a number, and then who gets the highest. So if we're looking at it for Mexico City versus Columbia, South Carolina, it's easy enough that I can just go ahead and pop through this in Excel. But you can't tell, I like Excel. So for this, take all these numbers, shoot them over in Excel. And you're looking at which side is which. Mexico City first, so you got Mexico City, and then you got South Carolina. That's your weight, that's your score. So it would just be equals this times this for your point value on that. And Excel is nice, and that it'll fill that function down. And the same thing equals this times this. And Excel's nice, and that'll fill that function down. And now it's a simple total. Who's got more? So we total by sum. Sum for the, oh, that's going to be repetitive. Sum here. Sum here. Which one's more? Mexico City. So for our purposes, you can take a snip if you want. You can copy paste. So here's my math, edit copy. Paste it on in. Or you can just do a regular Excel copy paste, whatever you'd like. Include that math, your weighted average showing Mexico City over South Carolina 73-71, and then you just have a couple sentence description. So the description is something like, based on the weighted average for these two alternatives, we determined that Mexico City is the preferable location. Keep in mind, a decision like this should not be taken lightly, and other factors may need to be considered. And that gets you through that section. That section is one that you should get all the points on.
I had picked South Carolina because I thought, I don't want to, Americans need jobs. So I got points taken off because I didn't pick Mexico City.
Yeah, so I'm not going to say holistically I disagree with you, but keep in mind we're jumping through the hoops of an exercise. And the exercise so you'll want to say Mexico City just simply based on the numbers. I don't necessarily holistically disagree with you, but the exercise here is that. So if you update for the final, I'm sure you'll be fine. And then you'll just... Okay. So before I move on to the next milestone, this one is kind of tough from a historical, statistical standpoint. This is the one that has the lowest grade. So I'm happy to go through any of the sections, and the main reason it has the lowest grade is this section and this section. Who's got some questions? Go ahead.
I have a quick question. When I finished my the final project, because I didn't get in onto the beginning because I couldn't hear anything. When I do my final paper, should I put like in an outline sense where you have 1, 2, 3, and so forth to keep it organized?
Yeah, I'll go through the final. I have a template for that too.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay.
Does anyone have any other questions specific to this milestone? Otherwise, I'll move on to the next one. Okay, I'll move on to milestone 3. Milestone 3 is the one that was just done. And I'll go ahead and go through that. Like I noted with the other ones, there's a template that everyone should have access to. If you don't, I'll email it out, not a problem. So this starts the same way, just a sentence or two on opening, and then you dive in. This is the biggest answer you're going to have for any of the questions. This is the one that requires the most content. Other questions can be answered in 4, 5, 6 sentences. This one, unfortunately, needs a little bit longer. It's the most complex one. But I like to organize it, separating out the 3 systems, describing them, putting your positives and negatives, and then talking a little bit about how they relate. So for just-in-time, I'll go through. Just-in-time is a process that focuses on supply chain management to reduce carrying costs by having supplies provided and outputs produced exactly when they're needed. So that's what just-in-time supply does. Just-in-time supply, the output of that, one of the benefits that sometimes people forget is that it has forced problem solving. So I'll take a teaching moment right now that's not necessarily for your paper, but just so you can understand how that forced problem solving works. I worked at a cabinet shop when I was a freshman in college, and I built a component of the cabinet that was, it's a face frame. And it's built out of this oak trim, and it looks nice, and part of it is you do these screw holes in the back, pocket screws, so people can't see it when they're looking in their kitchens or bathrooms or whatever. And I built those, and one of our machines wasn't calibrated right. So when I drilled the hole, every once in a while I'd split the board, and I'd throw the board away. My OM, the guy who was my boss, prided himself on ordering tons and tons of this board that was used over and over again. It's a strip oak board. And he prided himself on ordering this in bulk so he could get a good deal. And we would at any point in time have months of this board on hand, months worth. And there was a couple of times he came and checked in my area, and we chatted and talked about how things were going. And he noticed that the supply was much lower than it should be. He didn't really think much of it because who cares? We have a big cushion. And he went on throughout his day. Well, after a while, he realized that we were going through that board way faster than we should. So what was happening is I would drill these holes in, me and my peers, we would drill these holes in, my peers and I, sorry. We drill these holes in and split the board, and we just throw it away. And we thought, oh, who cares? We got a lot of it. Oh, who cares? We got a lot of it. So we were throwing away supply, and we were taking a lot of rework time. And OM functions, the exact goal is to eliminate that. So let's put that same problem in a state where you've got just-in-time delivery on those boards, right? So if instead of my OM coming over and saying to me, oh, it looks like you're going a little faster, it's, oh, we're almost out of boards. Why are we almost out of boards? I ordered enough for this week's worth of work. We shouldn't be out. And they would realize that that calibration was wrong on the drill that we were using. So that is forced problem solving. And that is really the biggest benefit to just-in-time. It's not your carrying cost because you're not spending as much money on your supplies. It's that you're forced to solve those problems. So in just-in-time environment, you can't operate inefficiently, otherwise the problem will come out right away. So if we didn't have that big, massive supply of boards, my boss would have saw, oh my gosh, something's not right on production, otherwise we wouldn't be out of boards. That is the key to just-in-time. Now, obviously that's not the answer to the question, but when I say forced problem solving, I think sometimes people don't understand what I'm talking about. So just-in-time, when you're thinking just-in-time, think of that little example, forced problem solving. And that for the question, for our purposes right now, you just have to say it creates a forced problem environment, forced problem solving environment, because that supply can mask your problem, right? Like it did at the cabinet shop. So that's just-in-time. A couple sentences on just-in-time. Now the negative of just-in-time, I think everyone kind of gets, well, what happens if you have a problem with your supply chain and all of a sudden you don't have your supply, or you miss production and all of a sudden your customers don't have it. That's the problem with just-in-time. That's an easy one. So then you move on to, that would be 4 or 5 sentences, maybe 3 or 4. So then you move on to TPS, Toyota Production System. They have a lot of lean functionality. They're similar to just-in-time. The main differentiation that I want to look at, that you'll want to look at, is employee empowerment, because that's not really looked at in just-in-time, and it's not really looked at in lean. Employee empowerment is the differentiation there. Employee empowerment with TPS, they focus on the workers being highly trained and highly skilled, and those workers have to know production to each side of them, right? So if you're putting on doors, but the step before you is putting in carpet, and the step after you is screwing tires on or bolting tires on, you will know both steps, so that if one area is behind, you can overlap that. So in TPS, they put all of the onus on the employees. So in a TPS environment, all improvements are bottom-up driven, whereas other ones are top-down. So the disadvantage for this, if you do all that training, it's very expensive. Onboarding new employees is very expensive, because instead of training them on one thing, you have to train them on everything. Also, then you're putting judgment in the hand of a lot of people, which is good, but it can be slow, because anyone on a TPS line can stop the line and say, oh, I got to fix this. So that's expensive, it's risky. Then you move on to lean. And I noted the page numbers in here, and with the template, kind of some things you should focus on. Lean, the differentiation between the others is that it's very customer focused. In a lean environment, you don't provide anything that doesn't add value to the customer. So the benefits there are that you don't gold plate. Gold plate is when you provide more than they want. The negative, there's 2 big negatives to lean. One is that it can create employee resentment. If you focus so much on the customer, not on the employee can get mad at you, thinking you're really pushing for lean production. It's draining, it's tiring. The other is, when we're talking about delivering only what the customer wants, sometimes we don't know what the customer wants. Everyone says they know what the customer wants, but the customer interaction piece in manufacturing is a huge deficit for people, because you don't get much interaction on a product that you buy that's manufactured. Think of the last time when you talk to service, you're talking to the people. If you get a haircut, you're telling the hair designer, hair person, whatever, you're telling them exactly how it should be, and you like it, and if you don't like it, they'll fix it right there. But think about a manufactured good that you buy. You're not giving much feedback. When was the last time you wrote a manufacturer to say, I didn't like how you built this, you should design it this way? There's not that much customer interaction with manufactured goods. So to have a lean facility is difficult, and you're making some assumptions that are dangerous. So if you're a Nissan and you presume that everyone wants navigation units, like our case study notes, but you didn't really talk to your customers, just a couple, you thought it was a great idea, and you spent a bunch of money to do that, and then your customers don't really care about it, you can see how that can create a problem. So you'll write those sentences, advantages, disadvantages, the focus. That's that section. Again, that's the section that's going to be one of the longest of all the milestones. That takes you into sustainability, the triple bottom line. Triple bottom line is a relatively easy section here. You're talking about the 3 Ps, profit, planet, people. When you talk about people, make sure that you can just generically say the company needs to focus on how it interacts with all stakeholders. Make sure you're aware that that P is not employees, that P is not customers, that P is all stakeholders. So that's going to be your employees, your customers, but then people in the environment. So like if you have a big manufacturing plant in town, that town kind of probably depends on those jobs, and that's something that impacts that area. P for planet, those are all of the green sort of initiatives. Are we producing in a way that reduces water consumption, electricity consumption, etc.? And the third P is profit, and the key point you'll want to note on profit is that that's the fundamental P, because without profit, you can't do anything for the people or the planet. So profit is fundamental. I would also note that these are not exclusive actions, they are inclusive, meaning that focusing on one does not detract from another. Then we move on to the ISO standards. The ISO standards, I've got some good questions that you'll want to answer. This, I'm going to double speak a little bit. This is the only section that the text isn't really your best source. This is one that you'd want to Google, and there's some great sources that come up right away. You just Google ISO 1400 and Nissan. So you'll want to first start off with just a couple sentence description on what it is, and then you can note that Nissan is or is not certified. They are. And whether they use ISO suppliers, most of them are, and they work for all of them to try to get there. What does it mean? And then why is it important? So the importance is that you have outputs and inputs that you can count on without having to measure. You don't have to vet your suppliers because you already know them. You're holding yourself personally accountable because this ISO certification is not a mandate, it's voluntary. I cover that section. And then you move into corporate social responsibilities. And this is just talking about how a company can be responsible in their practices. This is kind of a generic section that you get a lot of freedom on. So by this, you talk about what Nissan could do to be a better company. And when I say better, I don't necessarily mean profitable. Like how can they do better to take care of the environment or their employees or whatever. The key here that a lot of people miss is the part of the question, which of these actions do you believe to be the most effective? You have to pick one thing that Nissan can do that would be the best and tell me why it's the best. It doesn't matter what it is as long as you support it. I've never heard of a professor giving a poor grade if you pick something they didn't agree with, as long as you support it. So you could say, I believe Nissan's most effective corporate responsibility principle would be to take care of their employees. And I believe this to be the most effective because, and then have something decent supporting it. As long as you describe what corporate responsibility is, and then note a couple things they could do, pick one of those couple things, and tell me why it's the most effective, you're going to get full points there. That's milestone 3. Should have just been turned in recently. In the event that it's not turned in, I would strongly suggest doing it now because some points are better than no points. Before we move on to the final, any additional questions on milestone 3?
So then on these type of papers, it's okay to say, I believe?
Don't say I believe. Oh, yeah. Tell me what you know. Give me an example.
Okay, like you said right now, when describing the corporate responsibility.
Yeah, there you do want to, because the question asks which do you believe, but you don't want to put I believe throughout. Just in that context, where it says which do you believe to be the most effective, then yes.
Okay.
Normally, though, you won't want to talk about beliefs. Here it is because they asked for it.
Okay.
All right, that's milestone 3. So after you get through these milestones, and what's due here next week is your milestone 4, or your comprehensive version. And this is no more than any of the prior milestones as far as the work effort for the most part, because all you're doing is regurgitating your prior responses, hopefully just with a little bit of improvement. I don't know if this was sent out. Did you guys get this finalized, this final template? This one for the
Yeah, I have my rubric already.
So this final, okay, sounds like people got this. The final project, if you haven't looked ahead, it's just a summation. It's a summation of the prior ones with a few new questions. So you take this template. You can use this template, read through a description of what we're looking at. Remember, it's these modules that you've turned in, and then you're re-answering the questions. So use this template. Just use it and overtype. Delete out the stuff that's not needed, and then just overtype. So evaluate how the company uses operation management functions. Oh, that came from milestone 1. So you insert your answer from milestone 1 with your updates from your professor, maybe some updates from our discussion here. You insert that here. And we keep going on. It goes to the next question. Competitive advantage, that comes from milestone 1 as well. So you put in your milestone 1 answer. Make sure to update for the feedback. There's nothing more frustrating on my side of the table than telling a student, hey, here's how you fix this and get full points, and if you delete this sentence and add in this, then you'll be good. And then I get the final milestone and it's the same exact thing. So please take that input seriously. We tell you that because we're going to regrade it, and when we regrade it, we're looking for that update. So if we don't have it, then you get the negative grade or the not as good a grade both times. So you make your updates. Third question is the same, where you input. Then we get to a new question. Here's a new question, gross to net calculations. This is going to be a description from your text. Your text has a great section on it. Let me try to find it quick. I think we should focus on MRP. Never mind. Give me 1 second. I'll find the MRP section. I remember what page it is. MRP starts with chapter 14. Your content for MRP is here. You're looking at inventory models. Your inputs for MRP are going to be, give me 1 second here. Let me flip through quick. I'm trying to find my chart. There's a chart. I haven't looked at it yet. I've had to build MRP-like systems. They're pretty complex to build, but your inputs should be really easy. Your inputs are customer demands, limitations. Give me an inputs. I'm going to put myself on mute and find my old example. I'll be right back with you. I'm sorry. Sorry, I was staring right at it. Page 268, this material requirements planning tells what your inputs are. The difference between gross to net are inputs versus what's on hand. So it's bill of material, inventory, expected receipts. Those are your input components. So text is definitely your best source there. How would they use MRP information as the operations manager? So that's going to be linking to properly controlling your supply. So your inputs versus what you have, you're only ordering what you need based on the receipts, expected receipts. So that 3 sentences from page, what page am I on? 517 it looks like, yeah. That handles the majority of that. Your 4 primary priority rules for job sequencing. This is the first to last. Let me find the text version. Sorry, I put myself on mute just so I could find the page here. You don't have to hear all my typing. I'm finding my old template from before. Just a second. The ones that we're looking for are the earliest due date. I'm trying to find it in the text. Here we go. Here it is. This is the page you want. Priority rules for sequencing jobs, page 599. Sorry about that delay. Knew what I was looking for. Didn't know the best way to search for it. It's page 599. First come, first. This is an order on how you prioritize work. First come, first serve, being that whatever orders come in first are produced first. Shortest processing time means that if you have a bunch of orders, you're going to do the ones that are easiest or shortest first. Earliest due date, you're going to do the ones that are required to be done first. Longest processing time, you work on the hardest, biggest projects first. That's the brief description of each, page 599. So let's look at all the components of the question. Come on now. In what instances at the company might each rule be most advantageous? So if I'm filling out this question, I'm going to write the 4 primary priority rules are, list them, and then I would have first come, first serve. I would, most advantageous is, so first come, first serve, most advantageous would be when the jobs are similar of nature, when you're customer facing, when they have similar requirements for due dates, etc. So first come, first serve works great like in a restaurant sort of situation when everyone can see each other and everything's going to be similar in time. Shortest processing time, same sort of, then I do the same sort of thing. STP, shortest processing time, most advantageous is, least advantageous is, oh, I'm sorry, a bad one for first come, first serve for least advantageous. Well, it'd be the opposite when things are varying drastically. So if you have an order where the first order, you get 4 orders and one of those orders is going to take a month and the other 3 orders are going to take 1 day. If you do that 1 month one, your 3 people with a 1 day order are waiting 1 month and 1 day, 1 month and 2 days, 1 month and 3 days. So first come, first serve works best when the length and work effort for each of your orders are similar. For the shortest processing time, the advantage there is that you can have the most met deadlines. So if you flip that same example of 1 month and then those 3 one-day activities, if you provide those 3 one-day activities shortest first, your 3 people are very, very happy because they got it back right away. Your 1 month person doesn't get started for a long time. So the negative there is that your bigger projects could never be fulfilled. Your next one is earliest due date. This is the one that I like the most from a practicality standpoint because you're doing work based on when it's due. So here you're going to have stuff like, as far as some notes, earliest due dates allows you to fit requirements because you can prioritize based on when due dates are. Earliest due date becomes a problem if you have a lot of competing due dates. Longest processing time, you're going to work on the biggest jobs first. The benefit there being that those don't get queued up in eternity. The negative there being that the short things don't get kicked out until after the long ones are done, so you could have a long waiting time. Page 599 is your best source there. 2 sentences on each and you're good. A benefit and a negative, a positive and a negative. Then we go back on to copy paste. I'm sorry about that lag time there. I couldn't find that page, and I knew that was the page that I wanted. This is the page you want, 599. Then you go back to copy pasting. Theory of constraints. Take your answer from milestone 2. Update for your professor input, maybe some input from this session. Put it in there. Forecasting system from milestone 1, I believe. Supply chain risk, your answer from milestone 1. Just in time from milestone, just in time, CPS lean from milestone 3. PQM from milestone 2. Your time function map and that section from milestone 2. Cause and effect diagram from milestone 2. Your weighted average comes from, your weighted average comes from milestone 2 as well. And again, you're just copy pasting in there. And then another new one. This is a new one, ABC. I'm going to find the page for it. The ABC classification system is when you are prioritizing based on how much they're going to be used and cost. And again, go to your text. Don't try to necessarily Google. Your text is your best source for this. And again, this is a weighted. So it's how much demand, how much they cost. And then, so if you just take this, throw it into Excel. Throw this into Excel, and you're equaling this cell times this cell. Pull that function down. We're going to sort. So this is cost, unit, item, total. Now if you sort by here, put yourself in a filter, a sorter, smallest to largest, or I'm sorry, largest to smallest. Your first couple, these big ones, that's your A. That's your B, that's your C. Percentage is based here. In this example, does a good job of showing it. Oh, you're really small. This example shows what's your A, and that's your top couple, 20%, 30%, 50%. Bear with us. This is your ABC classification system. You're building the same thing, which is essentially, though, what I just did. So that Excel sheet that I just did, just look at your top 20, 30, 50. So the top 20% out of 10 items will be your first two. The next 30% will be 3. And then 50%, 5. So they make it really simple for you. So if you just wanted to type in A, B, B, C, 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 C. That's your classification then. So that's your whole ABC analysis for the question. And it's a short description on what inventory ABC classification system is and why. So ABC classification would just be an analysis that takes the items on an annual dollar volume basis. Below is that analysis based on these items and costs. Items such and such at A, item such and such at B, item such and such, at C. That little Excel sheet will take care of all that for you. We go on to copy pasting, sustainability, your answer from triple bottom line, milestone 3, ISO 14000 from milestone 3. Again, copy paste with the updates. Corporate social responsibility, same thing. Update from milestone 3 for feedback from your professor, feedback from here. I went through that kind of fast, and I'm sorry, I mentally didn't remember to prepare for some of the final answers, but I hope I found the pages fast enough for you. Most of them are coming out of your book. Your text is the best solution. What else can I share for you guys? What else can I do for you? Remember, this is your time, so what do you got for me? Anything that you've struggled with, any section you want me to go over again? Your time. I have some time for you. What do you want? What can I do for you? Yeah, I can send this final in Word format. I don't know if this final was given to your professors or not. So I'll send that. Give me anyone who wants it. I'll get ready to send it now. Put it in the chat window, and I'll send it to, put your email address in the chat window. I'm typing the email now. I like to do things real time. So I'll send that final to you while we're talking. Anyone who wants it, put your email address in the chat window.
Okay, on the final, should we include like a table of contents?
No, you don't need to.
Okay, so just basically, I mean, I'm doing the APO. Is it APO?
Is that right? APO format?
Yeah, because I do the oh gosh, I'm losing it here. The abstract. So then just follow, you know, copy and paste. So we don't need a table of contents.
No. You don't need a table of contents.
Okay.
Your paper shouldn't be long enough to warrant a table of contents.
Okay. This was really, really helpful.
Good. I'm glad there's some value. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed some text. As far as APA format, We do want APA format, but you need to understand that's like the most minute concern here. In this class, we're worried about content. Your professor should not all be grilling you on being absolute in perfect for your APA format. That's not, you should be APA as your guide. Double space or not, I've never once questioned it. I've had everything from single space to quadruple space. I've never questioned it as an issue. If you got a professor that makes a big deal about it, you know, I guess that's their prerogative, but presumably it should be double space. But that's not, I mean, that's not really the focus.
Now, I have another question. One of the things that I kind of like questioned myself was having a thesis statement. Because, you know, when I read the rubric and that, I was like, okay, you know, basically I'm being told what I need to put in this paper. So should we still have a thesis statement in the beginning, in the first paragraph?
You can have an opening if you want, but you make a good point. When we're grading these papers, we're grading them right off the rubric. You see the rubric, you see where the points come from. So from a point standpoint, there's nothing linking an opening to any points. I like to have a couple of sentences because it sets the tone and it reminds you of what you're doing and it helps you as much as it helps the reader, but it is not a requirement. When you're thinking of requirements, look at your rubric. Your rubric's your guide. So that's a good call out. Don't worry a ton on the abstract or opening or whatever the case may be, whatever you want to call it. Don't do a table of contents. Don't do things that, think of your paper as a lean concept, right? Your professor, your customer, has told you what the requirements are. My requirements as the customer are the answers to questions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the answer I want. So when you're doing something beyond what the customer is asking for, you're not following a lean methodology. You're gold plating. And I don't need gold plating. A little bit of an opening may be nice, but I've never taken points off for not having an opening. I would like some APA format, but that's gold plating. So look at the questions, and that's what you got to answer.
Okay.
To Kathy's point, the APA formatting, the big concern is just making sure you're citing your sources if you're using outside sources. I've never taken off points for citing that wasn't done well. I've taken off points when citing wasn't done. So if you are saying author, comma, year, and it should be year, comma, author, or vice versa, you're probably not going to have any issues. I don't want you to spend a bunch of time, say you have 5 hours to work on this paper. I don't want you to spend 2 of it worrying about formatting issues, worrying about citations, worrying about APA. I want you to spend like 20 minutes. You know, think of it as a pie chart. And when you look at your pie chart, I want the distribution to be across the milestones, not on this. This is a nominal concern.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So I've got 3 different email addresses here for the final project that I'm going to send out. Does anyone else want to add theirs in?
Oh, do I have to put my email address again?
Yeah, if you want to send the email address so I know where I'm sending it. I'm doing them now as we thought.
Yes, I'd like the file project. Okay.
All right, so we got the email addresses. Give me a couple of moments. I'm going to send those. I'm going to put myself on mute and be right back with you after I send them. Okay, everyone that's requested it should have it. We've got some time left on the clock. So 2 things I'm looking for before we end. For those who wanted and asked for a copy of the final, while we're on the line here so we don't forget, let's make sure you've got it, and that's what you're looking for. So while we're chatting here, if you just want to pull up your email, make sure you've got the final, make sure you understand it. We'll do that now. And then after everyone's confident that they've got it, then we'll move on to just any outstanding questions. So let's take a couple minutes. I'll step away and make sure you've got it, and then when you got it in front of you, I like to do things real time. So while you're looking at it, ask your questions while you got it in front of you so you can make your notes now. The real-time sort of feedback is what I'm looking for today, because when you hang up, when we disconnect this call, I want you to feel confident about the assignment and actually have progress towards it. So you could have made these, while we're talking, you can make all these changes on your milestone templates and be, that far into the assignment. Or if you didn't think about doing that while we went and you have some updates to make, I think this is going to be a recording, and if it's the case, then just go offline, have the recording going while you got your paper up, and you're going to get all the guidelines you need, and you can type out, most of your paper during the recording. So let's make sure everyone's got the final. If you just want to either confirm it, or I don't necessarily need to confirm, I'll leave a little bit of time, but if somebody tells me they haven't got it, then I'll circle back to them. So I'm going to put myself on mute, give everyone a minute, check their email, make sure they got it. I'm going to presume, based on the idea that I got no adverse feedback, that everyone received that. So the last 10, 15 minutes or so, open forum. Any questions on any of the components for Milestone's fair game? Just because I don't know what it's going to be off the bat, give me a minute to find the answer. So any questions on template? Anything's fair game? What do you got for me? Again, this is your time, not mine.
I have a quick question on the milestone template.
Yeah.
How do I link to the fishbone?
Yeah. You can still see my screen, right?
Okay. All right. Let me. I guess I have to download it. Okay, it's downloading.
Yep. So get your template like this. When you open the phone, I can walk through that. It can be, this isn't just for this phone. You should be able to save it right back in.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I got it. Now I'm going to save it. Yeah. I had to open the whole thing.
Yeah, you should be able to make your changes, save it, and just close.
Okay,
The thing to check, so sometimes I've had students turn back in the same fishbone template that I gave them because their changes didn't save. So when you make those changes, before you turn it in, that's your double check, is to open up the Excel and make sure, open up your Excel and make sure that your changes are there.
Okay.
The easiest way, otherwise, if you want it to look a little better and not do the Excel, you can just take a snippet, a picture of it. So if you hit print screen or you snip it, I don't know if you guys use snipping at all. I love snipping, the snipping tool. It's a gimme on Microsoft Office. So if you just use the snippet and get your picture, edit copy, you can paste it right into the Word doc. So then
is there an app for it, a free app for snippet? Because I worked at a company that they had it. Is there like a free app for it?
I don't know. You could also use your print screen. So if you just hit print.
I normally do the print screen.
So you could use print screen too. Obviously, you'd want to delete out the stuff that's not important. I don't know if I'm pretty sure I speak for all professors when I say we're not as concerned about those sort of tech perfections as we are the content. If you show you understand and you make it there, that's fine. I've had students that weren't good at tech that just drew it out by hand and took a picture, and that's fine. I don't care. I'll take a hand drawing. What's important is that you have a good problem statement and your root causes align with the problem statement. That's the biggest fumble for most students, is making sure that those align well. Good questions, though. Keep them coming. Who else has issues? I want everyone to walk away from this meeting knowing that they're going to get all the points on all the milestones. So what else you got for me?
Okay, let me, all right, got that. Oh, where was I?
If we've got nothing else, we can end early. That's fine. I've got no qualms with it, but it is your time, so I want you to make sure. I want you to make sure that you've got everything that you need.
Could I get a sample of the milestone 1 template?
Yeah. Give me a couple seconds here. I'm replying to another one, and then I'll shoot it back over for you.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Just got to find your email again here. All right.
Curtis Linda?
Yep, I got it. Just give me a second. And you said milestone 1, correct?
1, yes, please.
Yeah, no
That's
problem.
okay, yeah, I missed it.
That's all right. I've been throwing these templates around a lot, so I may not have included it. Anyone else missing any milestones that they want? Any other comments or concerns on any of the milestones? Now, the focus of this is the milestones, but after your milestones, there's another assignment. That's a short paper. I don't know if you guys wanted to talk to that because we've got a few minutes, or whether you're good and you just want to end 10 minutes early. I'll leave that up to you.
Oh, that would be good. Yeah, the short paper would be good.
Okay. Anyone else want to talk about the short paper? I don't have a template for it, but I can tell you what you need. All right. I'll just give a couple-minute ramble on the short paper. Let me find it. I wasn't prepared for that because I thought we'd take all our time, so it's not going to be as organized as maybe I'd like it to be, but I'll be happy to talk to it. So give me 2 minutes to find the assignment, and I'll bring it up and go through it with you.
Yeah. 4. Okay.
Wow, I just realized that I rambled for a long time on mute.
Oh.
I'm terribly sorry. I'll go through that again. Wow, that's embarrassing. I use this all the time. I didn't realize I was on mute. Did anyone get anything from my metrics ramble?
No, I was wondering. I heard something like in the background.
Okay, I was on mute. I'm sorry. I'll do it again. I'm terribly sorry for that. That's embarrassing. Okay.
We just thought you were in deep thought.
No. That's embarrassing.
That's too funny.
It even flowed very well. I was proud of myself.
Right.
All right. So the metric paper, the metric paper, the key thing to consider is that metrics are measurements, and that throws a lot of people off. When we're looking at what the most important aspects of measuring your organization are, you're looking at measurements. You're not looking at business units. And by that, I repeatedly get papers that indicate things like the most important measurement for an operations manager would be customer service. Well, customer service is not a measurement. You can measure customer service in a lot of different key performance indicators, but customer service by itself is not a measurement. And this paper is about what measurements are you concerned with. And they want you to tie it to the triple bottom line. So if I'm writing this paper, I'm structuring it out with, I'm structuring it out with like an intro paragraph that says what my most important focuses are and tie it to the bottom line. So I'd start with a paragraph that says metrics are important for any operations manager so they can make informed, quantifiable decisions. I feel that the most important business units to focus on as it relates to the triple bottom line are going to be the components of your people and planet because they'll lead to profit. For people, and then I would start a new paragraph. For people, I believe the most important thing to focus on from an operations standpoint is going to be your employees because we count on them to produce the goods and talk about why employees are important. But then you get to your heart of the problem, the heart of the paper, your metrics component. So it's going to be the way I would measure my people component is through employee turnover. Annualized employee turnover is an important measure for how well your employees like a company, as there's a direct correlation to employees staying at employers that they are comfortable with and feel proud of. I would also measure my employee engagement level through annualized employee surveys, and then I'd move on to the planet component that I talked about. So for a planet component, I would say the most important measurement it's important as a business, so you do some sort of intro, like it's important for a business to be concerned with how they interact with the planet. A good way to measure this, or the most effective way you can measure this, is through electricity usage. As electricity usage is directly tied to how efficient we are operating as an organization and gives a good indicator on how much energy we use. I would measure this on a trend line over the course of an ongoing trend line so that I can see kilowatt usage on a month-over-month basis. And then you'd see whether the trend line is going up or down, and you could know whether you're becoming more efficient or not. So that would be my 3 or 4 paragraphs, and then something, some sort of conclusion. Business metrics are important so that operation manager can get a good pulse on an analytical pulse on how the organization is doing based on their focuses. So that's my 3 paragraphs. My opening saying metrics are important and why. Then I in that call out the 2 areas of focus I'm going to do. For the triple bottom line, I'm going to say people and planet. And so for my people section, then I talk about why people are important for my employees. And then the metric, if you will, is going to be your annualized turnover and survey data from employee survey data. And then I move on to the planet section, talk about why it's important to be a good steward of the planet. And my focus there is on electricity usage, so my measurement would be a month-over-month kilowatt usage. And then I'd close with something that kind of ties it together, the closing paragraph. And those 4 paragraphs would be my paper. It would be about 2.5 pages. That's how you write this paper, and what a lot of people stumble on is the idea of what a metric is. Metric is some sort of measure. So when you're saying what's the most important metric is, just say the sentence to yourself out loud. The most important metric is, and then whatever you're going to call it, that blank, if you will, say it out loud and tell me if it's a measurement. So if you say the most important metric is customer service, not a metric, not a measurement. Customer service, you know, you can't, it's not a, you can measure it with things. You know, there's ways to measure it, but customer service in and of itself is not a metric. You can measure customer service by things like speed to answer on phone calls, first call resolution rate, how long people are on hold times. You can measure things that correlate to customer service, but customer service by itself is not a metric. On that paper, I'm sorry that we went past time because I had that same speech 4 minutes ago on mute, unfortunately. But I'm still fine to stay for a little while. So what questions, concerns do you have on this final paper? Or if you're hung up on not understanding the difference or think you might have a confusion on like an area of focus versus measurement, tell me what you think is the focus and I'll tell you a corresponding measurement, corresponding metric.
Production?
Okay, so production, you can look at either volume or quantity, depending upon what's important. I'm sorry, volume or quality. So if you're looking at quality for production, then you usually look at things like your defect count. So defects per million is an extremely common way to measure the quality of production, and it's the root of Six Sigma. If you're looking at sort of that Six Sigma approach, because Six Sigma is 6 defects per million. So that's the program is a lot of pieces, but that's the measurement of it. So the metric for production quality is how many defects per million or defects per thousand, but it's a ratio. Issues for good. So your defects as opposed to how many were good. That's the ratio, and that ratio is a measurement. For production on volume, it's just a count standpoint. So it would be a count of produced units, you know, whatever you're producing, how many are you doing? There's 2 different ways to measure production, quality and quantity. But that's good. What's another one? Anyone else who's got one that they want to focus on that they're not sure on the metric side? Okay. Well, I kept you past time because of my mistake, so I apologize for that. And I'll go ahead and end now, a few minutes late. I hope there was still some value out of it, though. I am free, though, for a couple minutes if you do have additional questions. My mistake kind of cut into our time. So any questions on the milestone? Go ahead.
Will this be, this is recorded. Is there a way we could, like, review it again on our own?
I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work. But I will circle back with the lead for our little group of professors and see if it's going to be posted. And then if it is, you'll see it in your Blackboard, your individual course shell. So unfortunately, I can't answer that. Any other questions, concerns before we go? Anything on the class, whether it be milestone, paper guidelines, anything?
I'm good. Thank you.
All right. All right, you guys have yourselves a good weekend. Sorry for the confusion there at the end on mute. It's kind of embarrassing, but I'm glad I was able to stick around and figure it out. You guys all have a good weekend.
You too. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.